So now it's like making me like. This is stupid. Good morning, internet family. Hope y'all are doing fine today. I'm out here with FrontierSouthKnives with Rick. Because I keep calling him Rich.
Rich.
Yeah. We're out here at his shop, and I'm trying to think of like something to ask. This is my first ever like behind the scenes interview. So yeah, just like how you want to tell them like a little bit about like what you do and like how you got into it and stuff. I'm gonna back up a little bit. Be next to you.
Yeah, for sure. I decided one day that I needed to not work for somebody else. So I tried starting to brainstorm what kind of things I could do that I would enjoy. And this came up as an idea because I did a knife one time at my old job in Alaska. And it was fun. And it was just a sharpened piece of crappy steel. And we would like throw it into the walls and stuff. And it was a lot of fun. I was like, I'll do that again. And so I went down to Harbor Freight and bought a bunch of cheap tools. And not a bunch, but a few cheap tools that I needed to get started, and some cheap steel. And I went home and started sharpening stuff. And it was ugly and terrible, but it was fun. And so I kept going at it, and I ended up sticking with it. So now 4 years later,
oh, that's awesome.
I stuck with it. Arnold Schwarzenegger cover band.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, growing up, I lived on a cattle farm with my cousins, and we used to take like 2x4s, like pieces of wood, scrap stuff, and we'd make all kinds of things out of it. I mean, little. So that's really cool that you like stuck with it, because I'm sure like we made swords, like we made all kinds of stuff, but it was with wood. It wasn't with metal, but like it's really cool that you stuck with it, because sometimes like the stuff that we made was so awesome, like, and we never even went any further with that,
right?
You know, and now like I don't even think kids play with swords anymore, do they?
I don't know. I keep seeing people post memes about using like the Christmas wrapping paper tubes as swords, because it's what you have to do.
Oh, you got to boot.
You got
no matter how old you are, you got to boot.
Exactly. I still got to hit something until it breaks.
Yeah, my kids and I were doing that the other day. We were in the store, we got a bunch of wrapping paper, and then on the way home, like the kids pulled it out of the back, and we started having like a sword fight in the car as I'm driving home, which is not safe. Don't do that. But yeah, it's kind of mandatory. Yeah, sure. I love knives. I know y'all that have ever watched me live, you guys know the knives that I have at the house that I bought at the store and stuff. But this is very different. This is very handmade, and you forge them, right? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I forge them. Sometimes I'll keep that rough surface on it. Sometimes I'll clean it out on the grinder. So it's like on this one. Like I forged it, but it's a very clean surface.
I like how
you
it's
can't
small.
see the hammer marks. So
it's really cool. Like I've seen a lot of people online, like they have some YouTube videos of like wilderness people that have like this big, it's like that, but it's big. And that's the only knife that they use. And that's really cool that you have small ones too, because I would probably, like if I could have a full kitchen set like that, I would totally rock that.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Well, and this one, I'm making a sheath for one. It's, so it's this big. The whole knife, tip to the end of the handle, because the handle is about 10.5 inches. Wow. So it's for a dude that wants a survival knife, and then I'll have 2 straps over it like this, so he can carry it horizontally on his belt buckle like this and draw it out this direction.
Oh wow!
So, but it's a big knife. He wanted a really big one, so
that's really
it worked for him. So I go anywhere from this small stuff.
Where would he put it? Like in the back?
In the back.
I was gonna say you have like to. That's. I was thinking like, oh, you gotta fit it right there. It'd be a big dude. Yeah. I mean, I know guys that would probably be able to do that. Like, I know a dude that's 7 foot tall, and he would not have a problem doing that. Yeah. And
if he had it right here, it's not that hard to fit along the natural crease, and he can draw it out this way. But to me, that's uncomfortable. So maybe not.
My luck, I'd probably try to put it back in and end up stabbing myself or something.
But it's one of those things that I got to design it my own way. And, instead you might be used to seeing a sheath that's going to hang down on your leg. That the belt hangs down this way.
That's cool.
But it's on. If it's that way, it's either left-handed or it's right-handed. Because if you do it backwards, it's going to be backwards, and you can't draw it out. So I designed this the way I do to have a belt loop on both sides of the sheath. So you can draw it through here or you can draw it through here. So it lets you put it on either side, anywhere you want. That's one of the cool things I like about doing this, is that I can make things that are more versatile or to whatever my specs I can make up. And so it just lets me have more creativity, and it became my creative outlet. It started as a small business, but it turned into something that was an outlet for creativity. And that's what kind of kept my passion for it going. Otherwise, I would have hated it. Like we talked about when I used to stream, I would game. And I've always loved video gaming since I was a little kid. But making a job out of it killed my love for it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this shit anymore. And so I wouldn't do it. And but for this, when I realized that I needed to switch to making sure that it's a passion, something I love, an outlet for my creativity, it reignited my diligence to keep going through when it gets hard. So it worked for me. That's probably the biggest business secret I have discovered as I've been doing this, is figure out how to make it your outlet for creativity and love it. Otherwise, you may die. Your passion may die for it. You won't die.
No. Never know.
Your passion might die.
We never know when the end is going to come. But yeah, like, if you love what you do, like legitimately love what you do, then it won't be a job. I know I've heard that before too, but like, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, like you said, if you love it and then like you start doing it and it's a chore, then yeah, you're not gonna continue doing it anymore. Right. And then you'll end up hating that one thing like so much that you won't want to do it at all. So that's that. I'm glad that you're not like that with this. And also, like, I like unique things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much like production out there right now, and like everything's copied, and like having something that like someone put their time and effort into that, and now it's like you're the only one that owns it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's not going to be, even if you made the same exact one, you're not going to make it exactly the same way. Each one of them is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So.
And I can still do that. Like these 4 knives are all more or less the same. I forged them on the anvil, so they're all going to be a little bit different. I did a run of 20 knives. I had a company cut them out on a laser. Because everything that I make, I also draft up into AutoCAD, so that I have a DXF file for later if I ever want that. But I sent it out to a company, and they cut it out at 20 pieces, and so I had 20 identical knives. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out a way to make them different when they got back to the shop. And so it was kind of an exercise for me to maintain that unique creativity when I had identical templates, 20 of them that I had to make something different. So that looked like shaping the handle a little different, making the handle or the sheath unique. I threw some of them to the forge and just put hammer marks in them so they had that rough look on them. That ended up shaping the blade a little bit different as they heated up. And so some of them, the ones that came out of the laser were real crisp and clean. The ones that came off the forge were a little rougher. Some wasn't skilled really at that yet. Still not that good at it. But
I like sometimes when it's like that though.
I do too. And I made a whole run of those back in May, June time for a blade show I went to in Atlanta. But I just hammered a bunch of stuff out, and I made everything different. Like I was like these, you look at and you can see the lines are clean and they're pretty uniform everywhere you go across it. But these other ones I did, nothing was made clean. I didn't grind anything clean. I made them rough on purpose because I wanted to make it look like it came out of a medieval blacksmith shop.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
And so they were a lot of fun to make, and I really loved them. And they're some of my favorite designs, and I'll go back to them. So it's like I kind of have 2 series of knives that I make, and these polished, clean ones, and this is the rough looking, brutal, fantastic looking kind of designs.
But that's like a lot of people are into like the Rent Fest stuff too, like, and having that type of like feel for it, even if they're not at Rent Fest or whatever, and they have it in their collection, you'll still get that feel from it too.
Yeah.
And I personally like the clean lines and stuff like that. But there's times where like I want something unique, like different than that. So I like that you have the variety in that too.
Yeah.
And the fact that like I've tried leather work before when I was real young.
Mhm.
That's a lot. It takes a long time to do that stuff.
It does, for sure. Learning it was definitely the hardest part. It's taken time to get a process down that's workable for me.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just I just know what's next, so it's kind of automated, and I can build shortcuts into my process as I go through, just because I know each process intimately, so I can dovetail all of them together into one.
That's cool.
One cohesive process.
How long does it take? Like from like where do you? I have so many questions.
Yeah.
So where do you get your metal from, and like how does it come when you order?
Okay. So I used to order it from a couple online suppliers, like out in New Jersey and other ones in Alabama. But I recently found the Blacksmith's Depot up in Asheville, so I'll just drive up there and pick it up.
Okay.
And so that comes in builds like this. So
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's just a 2-inch by 3/8 inch by 24-inch steel bar.
So it's not sharpened already. It's just a piece of metal.
It's just a square, just a chunk of bar stock. And so this is the kind of thing you'd find in a welding shop that they use for materials. The difference is it's not just any old steel. Like I was
getting ready to ask you like what kind of metal is it?
I usually work with like 1084 and 1095 because those are just really easy high carbon steels to work with. But I've worked with like 15N20, 80 CRV2. We cut our own heads off.
We cut our own heads off. Sorry, Yeah, I was wondering because like I was like, does it already come sharpened? Like, what kind of metal do you use? When you make the knives, do you just cut it out of that shape, or do you like fold it, or like what do you do?
So both. I'll do depending on which one it is. Sometimes I'll just trace. I have templates. So I'll take, like this, and I'll set it on top of the metal, trace it out, and then cut it with an angle grinder. Or I'll use this as a reference point when I'm out on the forge, and I'll just hammer it out and say, oh, it's pretty close. This is where I want it roughly.
Yeah. And
then I can come in here and clean it up on the grinder and that sort of thing. But either those or I have old farrier files.
That's like what they use on my feet at the pedicure place.
Yeah. This is what they use on horses. And so when the farrier is done and the blades are dull, they get tossed out. A lot of people like to collect them. And so I collect them. I've got about 30 or 40 of them here. And I'll just turn that to a blade. Because they're made out of really good steel. And so that's a cheap way for me to recycle old steel instead of it being tossed off.
So do you have to like hammer that sharp stuff down, or like you just heat it up? Or you
it looks cool. And so I'll leave it on there.
Oh, wow.
So I grind it down. So I don't like to forge those out because they hammer those teeth in and it looks really funky. And so I'll grind them flat and then forge it out. So that way the sharp teeth are ground down, but it leaves little triangle holes all through the whole surface of the blade. And so it gives it a really interesting texture that people seem to really like.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I would have never known that you could use a horse nail file.
Yeah. And you can use anything you want, really. You'll see people use like railroad spikes and things like that.
I could see that, yeah.
And
that would be a lot of like working with it, wouldn't it be?
So the issue with things like that is there's no good way to know what that steel is. And so if you don't know what your steel is, then you can't really heat treat it properly. You can't harden it properly or effectively. I mean, you can do kind of a shotgun blast approach at it where you just take it, heat it up, and then quench it with oil, and that'll help.
So you can heat it up and then put it in oil, and it won't like catch fire.
Oh yeah, it catches fire.
Oh.
So
dangerous job.
It catches fire, and so you take because you're running it. My forge runs at about 2,300 degrees, when it's in there. And so that I pull it out, and that steel is red hot, cherry hot. And I drop it in the oil, and that oil catches on fire. And so I have to wear gloves with my tongs, and I just dip it in. And the deeper, so the deeper I plunge it into the tank, the more contained it is. It's not that big a deal. But if I pull it out, just flame up my arms. So I got to keep it in there until it's cool enough, and then I pull it out and let it finish cooling the rest of the night.
I want to be here one time when you go to do that. Like, I want to see that. That sounds awesome. I mean, dangerous, scary, but awesome.
For sure. Yeah, we can do that another time. I'd be happy to do that. I don't have anything I'm forging right now.
No,
I got to handle 6.
That would be badass. I kind of wish I was like a videographer too, because like then I could take clips of stuff and then make mini videos and things. Because I went to go to a videographer to make a mini clip movie. It's kind of like a mini movie, but it's a commercial for my OF. And like I was like, this is so cool. Like all you're doing is like taking mini clips, like 30-second clips, and then you edit it, and then you put them together, like sandwich them all together, put music to it, put filters to it, and then it's like a commercial or a movie or whatever.
Do you have someone to help you do that?
Oh no, I don't do that. That's the videographer that does that.
Right.
So,
you have someone, one that does it. Because I have a few friends that have gone to the Charlotte store for broadcasting. And
I don't
that's
have
what they
anybody.
do.
The only person I went to this one time was that one videographer, and that was it. Like I just thought it was cool, but like I'm supposed to be getting it back sometime in January.
Gotcha.
I don't know. So.
Well, I have a friend that wants to come do the same thing. So if we can dovetail it right, we can have him come out because he wants to do the videography and do the same kind of thing, a commercial type video for your promo video. Cool. And that'll be part of it is me forging. And so you can do that.
I'll do the behind the scenes.
Live stream the making
of the commercial of because that's what I did at that's what I did on my OF is that I actually had it live, well for safety reasons too, but I had it live playing while he was making the video, and I don't know, like that's the same concept of what you're saying now. It's like that. It's pretty cool. Yeah, that would be badass. So look forward to that. Because I know I am. Yeah. Anything having to do with flames and fire and like, it's good for me.
And that was one of the fun things I told a friend of mine one time because she asked the same kind of question, like, why do I want to do this? And I thought I wanted to think of a better reason than I wanted to quit my job. Like, why did I pick this? Why is this the thing that I chose when I left my job? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, and this may have not been the original reason, but deep down, like I always knew that blacksmithing was badass.
It is.
You take one of the hardest substances that man utilizes on a regular basis, steels of different capacities, and you heat it up under this fire to incredible temperatures, and you bend it to your will. And to me, that kind of primal controlling type of power just was really attractive to me. And I'm like, big men, hammer, fire, and steel. To me, it just felt cool. And so it became kind of the moniker that I use to describe why I do what I do. And it's at the same time, it feels a little bit, edgelord cringy. So I don't really say it that way a whole lot. But
edgelord cringy. That's a new thing. I'm gonna put that as a hashtag on my thing.
But the reality is that's kind of what I like about it. It feels really fun, and it feels really like you have control and power over something very strong. And to me, that's enticing. So
you're now officially edgelord as my contact.
Oh my god! Son of a bitch. That's not what I wanted.
Yeah. So how long does it take for you from the time that you get the metal? Say you start working on one. Like someone says, hey, I want you to make me a knife out of this, and I want it to look like that, or whatever. Or maybe you even make it yourself, right? Like you design on your own, or do you have other people tell you what they want?
So I used to do that. I used to take custom orders, and that was part of what made me not like doing this, because it's similar to like if you're a software engineer, you understand that the end user doesn't always know what they actually need.
Okay, gotcha.
People that want a knife don't always actually know what they want on the end product. And I don't say that to be pretentious and arrogant, like, oh, I know better than you. But the processes to make certain features and things that people think are cool or tactical or something on a knife or a sheath are really, really impractical. And so to get it done, it's going to take me a lot of time. They're not willing to drop hundreds of dollars extra just because they want, incredible customability.
There's a difference between a prop and something that's actually useful.
Yeah, exactly. And so having to kind of play the middleman that guides a custom job to a functional tool that is within my skill set.
Yeah.
Because for a while I wasn't really willing to push myself too far beyond what I knew I was capable of because I was still learning.
Yeah.
And I decided at one point, how am I supposed to build a business and build a reputation on my craftsmanship if all I'm doing is taking custom orders? No one knows what I can actually make because I'm not making anything until someone requests something. And so I was like, I'm just going to make a whole bunch of stuff, make my own thing, be creative and have fun with it. And so I started making all this stuff and it was flying off the shelf as fast as I could make it. And I was like, well, I just make it. People
just make it.
And so I just kept making it.
If you make it, they will buy
exactly.
it.
So now, everything I make, I take with me to the brewery and I just keep it, as for show and tell. And I've sold more out behind that bar than
I bet.
in 6 months. Than I had.
Actually, that's where I met him.
Yeah.
That's where I met him was at a bar. Yeah. Fourth Creek Brewing Company.
Yeah. And
go check him out. If you're in the Statesville area, Fourth Creek Brewing Company is bartender there.
Yeah, I make beer and I make knives.
Yep.
So
that's the life.
Right.
I need to get you like one of those like bullhorn things to drink out of. That's what I feel like. I feel like you should
up
be
at the
like,
house, but I've got.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So okay, so you make them yourself, and is it just straight metal?
Yeah, you can pick one of my designs at this point. I don't really do custom stuff.
Okay.
I'll let people customize the handle material.
Okay.
I've got, a myriad of different options. All these different things
pretty.
are all handle materials, natural woods. So that's about all the customization I give anyone anymore. A little bit on the, for this guy, I gave him some options for carrying orientation. Mm-hmm. But that's about it. I don't customize the shapes of my knives really anymore because then it opens up the door for me making things that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make, and people say, oh, but the customer's always right. And if you're making money off it, who cares? I'm not going to sacrifice doing what I enjoy for the sake of making a buck. Like, I could take the same, to answer your question, it's about, 8 to 12 hours, start to finish, over the course of about 3 days.
Okay.
That's the short answer. We can delve into that more.
Yeah.
But I can take that same amount of time and make something that I enjoy that somebody else will buy. I'm not losing anything.
Yeah.
Because one person isn't going to buy a custom piece doesn't mean I can't use that same time to make something that somebody else is still going to buy.
Yeah.
I've never made something that people won't buy. So.
And I mean, you can find somebody that actually does like quality, custom stuff and just refer them out too.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that like they know that this is who you are, this is what you make, and they can come to you at any point in time and say, hey, okay, I like what you do. I'm going to get one from you, but I would like to do this handle or something like that. Yeah.
And I've had people ask me about axes and big knives. Like I have a friend that keeps asking me to make him a kukri knife.
What is that?
It's a big machete. I have one. I didn't make it. I'll show you what it looks like.
This is cool. Oh my gosh.
What's this? This is a kukri. I want to say it's Persian origin.
That looks like it's kind of like Egyptian or like that area.
Yeah, so it's a machete style. I think it was made originally as a sword maybe, but we have a smaller version. And I've got a handle that I'm not done shaping on it. Mm-hmm. I didn't make this. Someone gave it to me, and so I'm just putting a new handle on it for me. But he wants me to make one of these. I'm like, no, this is huge, and that's ridiculous, and it's not in what I enjoy to make. I don't like making these big, weird shaped things because they don't do it.
I think that at that, like, from like a metal standpoint, after a period of time, if you don't make it correctly, there's like weak points within the metal, right?
Absolutely.
So you'll have a breakage if you don't make it right. And like, I would rather you do what you're doing and know for a fact that you're gonna have that the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Than you go and try to make someone ridiculousness and end up making a mess of it because of the fact that like it's not something that you normally do.
Yeah.
So
That's the thing about people that want custom stuff is they're pretty picky about the end product. So I just don't want to give myself that license for not criticism. I don't mind criticism at all, but I don't want to.
You want your customer to be happy.
Yeah, I don't want to have to deal with someone nitpicking the details out of it because it's just not where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's not what I want to do. If I get to a point where I'm in a big production and I can do a lot more stuff like that, sure, maybe we can have a custom line that I have other people that help me do. But for now, I just don't want to do
Start off simple.
I have another friend that keeps asking me for axes. And I'm like, I don't make axes. It's a whole different process. I mean, you still use the forge, but there's a lot of extra tools that I would need to make them that I don't have. And I don't have a power hammer, so I have to do it by hand, and that's tough work.
Yeah.
But you'll take a block of steel and you'll shape it down to however you want the axe head to look, but then you have to put the hole in it for a handle. So to do that, you have to heat it up really, really hot and put what's called a drift, or basically a big chisel into the end of it, and it has to be hammered down into it. Doing that by hand with one person is super hard. It just takes forever. You have to heat it up, and as it's cooling, it gets harder and harder. So yeah, you can do a couple strokes with the hammer to get it in there a little bit, throw it back in the forge, and let it heat up again.
Oh, that would be forever.
And so what a lot of people do if they are doing it by hand is they have one guy hold with tongs, hold that chisel. Another person takes a big hammer or even a sledge and hammers that drift into the steel, and then flips it over and does it from the other end.
Yeah, even back in the day, they had apprentices that would hold them up.
Or like a hydraulic press. A lot of people have hydraulic presses. I don't have one of those
That's
yet.
a lot of money right there.
Yeah. So if I get one of those, maybe I'll move into axes because that would be cool. That's why I have this tattoo. I want to make this one day.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that. I also have a lot of friends in this industry that make everything else under the sun that I don't. So if someone wants something, say, yeah, I'll make this. But here's the name of the guy that does.
Yeah.
And I love the people in this industry because everybody is referring everybody to everybody and helping everyone out and giving, hey, I'll trade you this material for this material, or hey, I need this done because I don't have this. Can you do it? And we can trade work for something else. I'll do this favor for you later. You do that favor for me, or I need this material and I can trade it. I don't have the cash for it. And whatever, stuff like that. And so people are super helpful to everyone.
We've completely lost the whole trading system due to money. Like we've lost the camaraderie and the human nature behind the ability to be there for each other when we need something.
Right.
And everything is solidly money based now. And to put the heart back into that, into that industry, to do that and to keep it there, that to me is awesome. And I hope that it continues to stay that way because there's not much of that out in the world anymore.
Right.
Y'all know I have me personally, my ex-husband was in the military. So on post, that's one thing that I miss about when I came back into civilian life is because on post, I wanted for nothing. It was, if I needed, I'd just say something and it was there the next day, especially with the kids and stuff. I never had to buy kids clothes or anything like that because we traded out just the same as you guys are doing in your industry. And out here in the real world, I guess, it's literally man against man, and it's the dog eat dog world or whatever you want to call it. Each man for themselves, or I don't know. But that's really cool. This whole thing to me is really cool. What are some of the how long did it take for you to learn all this stuff?
As I'm still learning constantly. It's a exercise in mastery for me because I can take a piece of steel and sharpen it and heat treat it by watching videos on YouTube. That's how I learned most of what I learned. Well, that's how I got started, and so it took a few months to really get going to make something that I thought I was happy with that I would sell. And so I made a bunch of crap in the meantime, and I broke a bunch of stuff because
it's a learning process.
Right. But one of the things that if I were to ask you,
I don't know nothing about this stuff.
Right. Perfect. That's a perfect case study. So if I was to ask you, if you take a piece of metal out of the coals or out of the forge, and you want to cool it down really fast, what's your first thought? That's a quick, easy way to do that. How are you going to cool it down.
I think most people would drop it in water.
Right.
And that would probably shatter it, wouldn't it?
So what that does is, and I didn't know this until I broke a couple blades. I dunk it in water and pull it out, and there's a crack. And even though the steel is super hard, I can tap on the counter and it shatters to pieces. Or at least breaks into 2 pieces.
Wow.
So what that does?
That's super aggravating.
Yeah. So that, and then I learned, you got to dip it in oil, and I'm like, well, what difference does it make? Why does that happen? And what happens is when you dunk it into water, that metal is so hot that it creates this gas pocket around everything. And so because it's so hot, it boils and evaporates the water instantly. And so you create this gas pocket around the metal that's submerged in the water. So it doesn't actually cool down that quickly. And it doesn't cool down that evenly because, water's going to get in and get around the gas pockets, and it's not going to cool uniformly.
Okay.
Oil doesn't evaporate like that when you dunk it in there and it catches on fire. And so it creates this uniform, slow, cool process. Slow, relatively, it takes about 30 seconds. But this cooling process for the steel that allows the molecular structure to slow down and line up with each other.
Oh, that's cool.
Because, as I don't know how familiar you are with, I don't really know, science that well. I do know that the molecular structure of steel, when it gets hot, the molecules are going crazy and they're moving around a lot because there's so much energy packed into them that they're just moving around because they're really hot, as anything else does when it gets hot. Water, it evaporates, it gets hot and it moves. Steel does the same thing. And so when you hammer it, those molecules disperse based on where you make the hammer.
So wherever you're hitting it, it actually is cooling at that spot.
It's cooling a little bit in that spot where it's striking the anvil, where it's striking the hammer. It's cooling a little bit, and it's slowing down while the rest of the molecules are still staying mobile. And this is the most layman term description I can muster because that's how I understand it as a layman.
Yeah.
And so after you've done all these hammer blows and shaped your knife, you want to stick it back in the steel and give those in the forge, and give those molecules a chance to realign with each other, and then slowly cool down. Let them sit out at room temperature and then cool down slowly, naturally, and that slowly settles all the molecules back in structure, in like a uniform structure, so that. It's the same thing. It makes it harder that way. Exactly.
I would think that it would make it stronger.
Yeah, that's the hardening process. And so that's the
tempering.
No, I'm having a brain fart suddenly. It's normalizing is what it's called.
Oh, okay.
It normalizes the structure of the steel. And so then when that's normalized and everything's going the same direction and it's uniform, then you heat it up one last time and quench it in the oil to solidify that structure.
And I would assume that by in a way, because it's still hot, when you're putting it in the oil, wouldn't the oil attach to the metal at that point? And it would give it its own kind of malleable ability in a small fraction of a point?
So it doesn't penetrate the steel at all.
Oh.
But in the same way that you would season the cast iron pan, you're going to get that polymerization on the surface of the cast iron that gives.
Don't ever wash my cast iron pots. I will kill you.
But it does the same thing to the surface of that blade, and so then you have to go and clean off that oil polymerization afterwards to have a workable surface, so you can finish it properly and do it that way.
So does your metal, where you are hitting it with the hammer, does it leave that mark on it, or do you still see it? Because I know a lot of swords and stuff that I've seen in my past few years that they have these lines through them, or they'll have where you could see the hammer marks or some kind of design in the actual sword or knife or whatever. And I was wondering if that was the same concept with what you do. So.
The hammer blows are going to look like little divots or imperfections in the surface of the steel. If you're talking about lines, there are 2 types of lines that you might see on a blade. And one of them is a folded Damascus steel or a forged welded steel, which is what this is.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what these two.
Sexy. I like this. Looks like wood.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it very well, but the lighting. There we go. Now you can see it.
You might show it
That's
better.
sexy. Look at that.
You might show it better in this because this is the same steel.
Wow.
This one.
Kind of like gotta lean it towards the. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
that
nice.
pattern that you're gonna see through there is called a Damascus forge welded pattern.
I like that. So what happened? Like, what are you doing to make it look like that?
So I didn't make that steel. I bought that steel because I don't have the tools to really do it efficiently yet.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, if someone was to do it, like, what would they have to do?
So you would take two different kinds of steel. A lot of people use.
This is super sharp.
It is pretty sharp. So a lot of people will use a high carbon steel and a stainless steel, and then weld them together in the forge.
I'm trying to show it. You could go ahead.
And what that does is you layer it, a bunch of pieces on top of each other, kind of like alternating like this way. You stack them up like this, alternating high carbon, stainless, or the different steels, whichever one you're using, and then you hammer it this way. And what that does is it welds them together because they're so hot, and you sprinkle a flux material on them like borax or something. Yeah. And then you hammer it, and it welds them together. And so then you fold it, and you weld it again. You fold it, you weld it again. Like you flatten it out, and then you hammer in the center and fold it over, and do it again, and then do this over and over and over again.
They do that for like the Oriental knives too, don't they? I can't remember what they're called, the long sword or something.
So it's they do it with katanas.
Katana, that's it.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of it.
It's the same principle with a lot of those old school Japanese techniques because that folded steel gives it a different type of rigidity. Some people say it's stronger. I don't know that I agree with that because if it's not welded properly, it can delaminate.
So it'll split.
It'll separate the way you use like a wet piece of plywood would separate.
Oh, wow.
So if it's done masterfully, yes, it can be stronger because it gives a different molecular structure being folded over, and it gives it a rigidity that has, different orientation for the patterns or the structure of the molecules. So if you make it more rigid in the terms of the different ways it can take a blow, it's not going to shatter or break. So it can be if it's done properly, but it's not often even done properly. And the way you see it with old Japanese styles and making katanas and swordsmithing and things like that, they don't take different steels. They take one steel. They usually pull their own carbon out of rivers nearby and make it that way and melt down the metal.
Reminds me of like Minecraft or something.
So melt down the iron that they can find in the riverbeds and mining and stuff, and draw the carbon out and make a steel out of that carbon.
So where do they get the carbon from? Like just
mine it. They literally, I've seen them build these clay forges and literally melt it into, use it as a crucible.
Rock?
Yeah. So it's an iron that you'll find in riverbeds and mining and stuff.
Okay.
So I've seen them take and melt that down, treat it like it's a crucible, or and melt it into this puddle at the bottom and collect it. It separates from everything else and you draw it out. But that's all going to be the same steel, it's not steel at that point, they make it into steel. That's going to be the same material. So it's not going to look like this where you have two different materials that are etched differently and draw a pattern. It's all the same thing. And they don't etch them back then. They just sand them and polish them really smooth. So another way you'll see that kind of line, sometimes you'll see one line across the length of the blade, where the top half is darker or vice versa. And that's called the hamon, where you basically cover part of the blade in clay and heat treat it that way. And it just creates a surface that is pretty, really.
That's just for aesthetics. Okay.
It's a cool skill that not a lot of people do in knives. I haven't learned how to do it personally yet. I know the process, but I haven't done it. So I couldn't go into detail.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. This is amazing to me. Just I don't even think I would be able to get this far. So this is really cool.
Those are the different things that you can make just a surface of it look
I can
different.
make cookies. I can cut them out in a cookie and make knives.
Nice.
That's as close as I think I can get right now.
But
Like,
adding those little finishing details is what separates, I think, someone that's just starting from an expert or a master, is they understand the intricacies of and the artwork that goes into making something even more detailed, even more masterfully crafted. Because that Damascus steel will sell. You can have two blades side by side, identical, except you have Damascus steel with one and regular steel with another, and you'll sell it for at least double the price.
see, I like the patterns that are in that Damascus steel. I like the way that looks, but like, and that's like more of like a preference. But I also like the sleekness of just the straight, like how these are.
Yeah.
How they're just straight clean. Like it's just original. Like you're not gonna see that somewhere else. This is the only place you're gonna get this stuff. So, like I don't know. I really like that, like sleekness to it, and I don't know. I rock the hell out of them. But so like when you make the leather work, like where do you get your leather and stuff from?
Right now, I get my leather from Tandy Leather Supply in Charlotte.
Okay, so you do local stuff.
Yeah, well, Tandy's not local. They happen to have a branch in Charlotte that I go to. So I don't like ordering leather offline because I have to go through and inspect the whole hide, because I don't want a bunch of imperfections, because they're still hand drawn off of a cow when they're pulled off. So you can sometimes go through and find imperfections or big cuts, or it's cut at uneven thicknesses sometimes. So I don't want one to be shipped to me without me inspecting it first. So I go there and pick it up from Tandy, about a quarter of a hide at a time.
See, I like that because I'm very much the type of person that if you're going to kill an animal, you have to use all of it.
Yeah.
You have to use all of it. A true hunter will be that way. And like, I'm not an animal activist either, but like, I've not gone hunting yet, so I don't know what it's like to kill an animal. But if I was to kill an animal, like I would want to use all of its pieces. Like if I was to purchase a knife from you, I would want the handle to be made of the bone or of the horn of the animal that it came from. And like the hide would be the holster, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I would want to do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, everybody has their own preferences.
Yeah.
You know?
I posted on Facebook a few weeks back asking if anybody, my hunter friends, had things like that they're getting rid of. So I want to learn to tan my own hide so that I can, not my hide, but
I mean, I'm sure wifey booze wouldn't mind.
and be able to make my own leather, because that's something that I would love to be able to do. But I also don't really hunt that much, so I don't have an outlet for getting that stuff without other people. So, and also I want things like antlers and bone material that I can cut slivers out of and use as liners or use as pins in my handles. So, because I think it would be cool to take.
So if y'all know anybody that has accessory stuff like horns and pieces like that, he's looking for it.
And even teeth and claws, because I want to be able to put those into my sheaths. I think that would be cool.
I do. I agree with you.
But I can drill out. You can get drill bits that are designed to drill out dowels, and drill into bone, and use the bone as the pins for holding in the handle material, or bones on the handle themselves. So it could be.
Because I've seen like deer horns used as handles. I've seen like not even like the short. I mean, sometimes you can make them short and pretty, but I've also seen like the full horn, like almost looks like an antelope horn, but like it's the whole handle of it. I don't know. It's really, I've seen a lot of stuff online.
Well, I have one that a guy in Alaska made me, and it's made of the handle is made of caribou.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's got the
I
base
was wanting
of
to
it.
feel caribou antlers. I bet they're really soft.
They are soft. All the velvet or whatever is taken off of it, so it's not on that handle. But it's still they're soft.
Yeah.
They're cool.
I'm trying to think of other questions. So do you have a website that you? I mean, I know you have Instagram. Do you have like a website that people order from, or?
So I had built a website a few years ago, and it was called FrontierSouthKnives.com. But I took it down because I wasn't using it for anything.
Okay.
I wasn't building it. Everything that I was creating, I was putting on Instagram, and it was selling from there. And I wasn't taking custom orders. So it didn't really serve any purpose for me at that time, because it was just a gallery for me. And Instagram functions as a gallery.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. So one of my goals this year is to get that website rebuilt and use it as a formal gallery in case Instagram no longer exists at some point. I have the website. And I'll just be able to use it as another avenue of contact. But for the time being, I just use Instagram because it serves my needs for the time being.
At least then they can know where they can go to get, if they want something from you, that they can just go directly to your Instagram.
Yeah.
Which is FrontierSouthKnives.
Yep. I answer everything I get from there, and it has a full gallery of everything I've ever made.
Yeah, I think I liked some of your stuff, like gave it a little heart.
Yeah.
I was like, I want this one.
Yep. So you can see the kind of things that I've done, and hopefully it's a living history of how I've grown. I hope.
That's cool.
Because I'll show you my first knife I ever made.
You gotta frame that one.
I'm ashamed of it, but I keep it.
Yeah, I hear you. I think if I was to ever make a knife, I would probably frame it.
Frame it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Put it up on my wall because no one will ever use it. They won't be able to, probably.
This is what I was telling you about with the.
Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. Look at that, guys. Check that out. Some nice badassery right there. That knife automatically tells you to back the fuck up. That's so cool.
Yeah, but this, and it's rusted because I don't take care of it, and
it's always the proper way to hand a knife to someone is blade down, handle forward.
Yep. So
that way you can like bring it down and away from them.
Yeah.
So this is your first knife?
Yep.
This is his first knife, guys. You only see it here, live.
Yeah. I ain't showing that one off to anyone.
This is really cool, though. Like, this is definitely, like, something that you would keep on your side just because of the fact that, like, and, like, hand down through your family, too. Because of the fact that it's yours. You know, It was the first thing that you ever made.
Yeah.
I
gave my dad one of my first ones ever, which was this one. He passed away last August, so I got it back. I didn't make this sheet. He did, because I wasn't making sheets at that point. But this is that farrier material.
Wow. I was wondering what you were talking about. So when he talked about the horse knot or the horse nail file, this is what it ends up looking like after he like sands it down and stuff. It's like not lighting. Okay, there we go. It has this kind of like, and you can hear it too. It has indentations, and on the other side of it, you actually still get that file look too. Like both sides of the file, but like it gives that like kind of like a triangular shape. That's really cool.
So that one I learned a lot.
And the wood has got like its own distinct pattern in it too.
Yeah, that's a Patagonian rosewood. So I learned a lot on this one as well. Like you can see here how this handle cracked, because I didn't give any room for the handle, or I didn't stabilize the wood. So I didn't give it a chance to dry out. So over time, my dad used this in Utah. And so there it's far drier than it is here.
Oh, yeah.
And so as it dried out, it shrunk. And the pressure exerted around these pins was too much, and so it cracked. And so over time, that kind of thing happens. It cracked again right here. And putting this lanyard hole super close to the end, it cracked around here.
Yeah.
And so allowing tolerances was something I learned. You can't just throw hardware into it and then make it work. And so I can that's what this knife is. It's the same thing. Same design. It's built off the same template, but this is just hammered. The difference is I've only got 2 holes in here with a good amount of space between the edges to give it lots of room to contract. It's in different environments. And so I'm also learning how to stabilize wood so that it doesn't ever have the opportunity to absorb or lose moisture anymore.
Okay.
And so that gives me the opportunity to have a solid wooden product that is, the integrity is not compromised. It's going to stay the same way forever, because it gets impregnated with the stabilization fluid and then hardens, and it can never absorb or lose moisture again. At least if it does, it's very minimal, and it won't change no matter what environment it stays in.
Okay.
So learning details like that is not something that you get when you first start. You gotta.
Yeah, you learn it as a process over time.
But I didn't even know that was a thing until
Until it happened.
Until I broke some stuff and I realized, oh man, I made this shitty and I could have done it better, but I didn't know that a process existed to make that different. Because you can go YouTube a video about making a knife, and sure, you can have a great video of people like Walter Sorrells and Mike Eakin. They are people that teach a lot of stuff on YouTube, and they'll teach you how to make a knife from start to finish, but you don't learn the details about where to put your pins, the details about how to handle your wood properly, how to condition it when it's done. It may take a while before you learn that high carbon steel can rust in about 6 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That's how long it doesn't take much at all. But if you're at the grinder cleaning up your blade again, trying to make it look polished and nice, and you're dipping it in the water to keep it cool, and you set it on the bench, by the time you're done with your second blade, that blade has rusted.
Wow.
And that's how fast it can happen. But you may not
that
know
would be
that.
me.
Right. And so when you sell one to somebody and maybe you didn't see that rust happen, but you don't oil it, you don't oil a high carbon steel blade, and give it to somebody and they bring it back to you in a month and say, hey, it's rusted. What am I supposed to do? And then you have a blade that you got to take back, repair, clean, recondition, and then teach them how to oil or oil it for yourself for the first time. Maybe you didn't know that at the beginning. So there's all these little nuances that you pick up as you go along. You figure out how to make a better product or how to offer it better to a customer. But I don't like doing stainless steel. I can't heat treat stainless steel here easily because a lot of stainless steel, for it to be hardened, requires like a cryogenic treatment. So like you gotta use liquid nitrogen. I don't have nitrogen.
So it's either really, really cold or really, really hot.
Or a combination of the two, where you have to do one treatment of one and then a treatment of the other as well to really maximize its hardness or its integrity. And so I don't have the means to do that. I don't want to ship out every single knife to a heat treatment company to do that. Yeah. I can, and I have batches, but I don't want to do that for everything. So I stick with high carbon. That makes it easier, and I just say, hey, I'm going to condition this for you. Keep it oiled, like the same you do with a cast iron skillet. You got to keep it conditioned. You got to take care of it, and not everyone wants to do that, and that's fine. Don't do it. I'm not going to. Then my knife right now isn't the right knife for you, and I'll tell people that. So you can do it, but right now, with the product that you're looking for, my product is not right for you because this is what it is currently, and if you're not willing to put in that work, I get it. I absolutely understand. Yeah. Not everybody wants to take care of stuff like that. Not everybody wants cast iron because you got to take care of it. And that's perfectly okay because it takes extra work. So don't do it. But don't buy the product if you don't want to take care of it. And I'm not going to force anyone to buy anything if they're not willing to take care of it. So.
Yeah. Because, in the long run, you're losing out anyways because now they're not going to have that for as long. Like, you want your person to have it for eternity, basically, and to be able to hand it down, through their family or whatever. And, I look at this as more like, how people will look at like engagement rings, and how it's like, yeah, you can have an engagement ring, you can get it anywhere, but if you want something specific, that you want to go to one specific person to make it the way that you want it. So, and I know it's kind of like ass backwards of the way I just described it. Probably didn't say it right, but that's what I'm saying is like specialty items where for a fact that someone is legitimately solely working their craft into this one specific thing, and they are a tradesman. Like, it's what they do, So, I don't know. It's just really cool to me. I would never be able to make it. I don't think I'd ever be able to make a knife, but
you could do it.
I think anybody could do anything they put their mind to, but like, I don't know about the quality of it. Like, and the amount of time and effort that you put into all of this stuff, I think, is what makes it so much better. Because the fact that you're getting something that like your heart's in it. This is your stuff. You created it. You made it.
Yeah.
So.
And to answer your question from earlier about how long it takes, I start. It takes just a couple, an hour and a half to get it shaped and beveled properly. And then a little, not too long to heat treat it out at the forge. But then once you heat treat it and cool it, it's got to go. I got to take it up to the house and temper it in an oven. I do 2 cycles at 400 degrees for 2 hours. And it'll cool to room temperature naturally. So that process takes about 6 hours. And then the time it takes for the handle to cure and set up to the blade takes about 24 hours. To make it and to shape it and to sand it and to polish it, all that stuff combined. And then for the sheath, I can stamp out and dye the sheath, but I like to give the sheath dye time to dry.
So you also change the color of the skin.
Yeah, they'll all be dyed. I have a couple browns, blacks. I just picked up some paint from a friend of mine. Well, it's dye paint, but
Like a stain.
Yeah, that thing. And they're made for wood, really. But I am going to thin them out really, really thin and try learning how to dye. Because I think
cool.
I've seen people take these sheaths and do like a black outline around the outside, and the inside is like a really deep blue color or something.
Oh wow!
And so it makes a cool contrast. And so my son, I made him a knife, which I don't have with me.
You like yours to stand out.
Yeah. So
okay. I see that you had purples and stuff like that in here.
These are all natural wood. It's not. I also use a material called G10, which is going to be this. It's a plastic material, but it's black and orange. This one is. His is black and blue. And so I'll show you the photo actually so you can see what I'm talking about. But so it gives a more vibrant color instead of like wood can still be vibrant if you take care of it properly. But it's with plastics you can get really bright colors. Some people like the feel of plastics better, so I've made those.
Like
too.
for the handle or for like the?
It's for the handle.
Okay.
Yep. But his is blue and black instead of orange and black, and so I will make a sheath that is going to match that black and blue pattern.
Cool.
And that's again the same pattern as that. Of course.
This is what he's talking about. I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a really like blue and like stripiness to the patterns in the handle.
And the top near the spine is an example of what that looks like when I don't grind out the handle marks.
Oh. Okay.
So it keeps that kind of rough,
edgy.
Yeah. So he'll be 7 in February, and I'll give that to him for his birthday.
Oh, that's cool. Happy early birthday. So like you paint and dye the material, you make the handles special, you hand make I was about to say sword, the metal piece, and like do you cut that out like using the little bandsaw thing?
I have a bandsaw.
Bandsaw.
Yeah, and I'll cut it out roughly, and then I'll drill the holes with my drill press to match. I'll set the handle. So
you'll do like how you cut out the metal, you'll do the same thing for that.
Yeah, so I'll take this and I'll set it on here, and I'll trace it out with a Sharpie, and I'll cut out that pattern, and I'll roughly outside of the lines so that I still have material to sand off. And I'll clamp this on here, drill the holes so they match identically, flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. And then I'll dry fit them with pins, whatever my pin material is going to be. Because they're different. I'll use brass, or I'll use stainless steel, or carbon fiber, different things. So they all come in different diameters slightly. So I have to drill different size holes for different size things. Because I want it to fit snugly, but not too tight that they crack over time. So
I was gonna say, yeah, you probably have to make it to where like they could still kind of expand a little bit.
Yep.
Same concept with the handle part of it. How do you keep them from cracking the poles that go inside of it? Like, how do you keep those from cracking? Is it like because of the material, or is it something that you actually do?
They shouldn't ever crack. They're not a material. Well, first of all, they're confined pretty tightly inside the holes that I drill.
Mm-hmm.
So if they did crack, they're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. They're not going to really expand much further.
Okay.
But by and large, I use metal in those pins anyway. So I'll use stainless steel, or I have titanium sometimes. This polish is really nice. It's super hard to grind, so I have to be careful about how much I use. That's another little detail you learn. Is like if I use a titanium pin and I go to grind the excess, because sometimes they're a little bit longer when I first glue them up, and so I'll have to put them on the grinder and clean it down so they're all flat. But the problem with that is titanium is a fantastic heat conductor. And so if you're heating it up on one side, all the heat will travel through that pin really, really quickly and disperse into the epoxy on the handle and cause it to deactivate and melt, and my handle will come off. And I was like, damn, I got to go apart, clean it up, and do it again. So I had that happen once. So I was like, oh, I'll just grind it down really fast. And it was really, really hard, so it didn't grind quickly. So I'm like, hogging away at it, and it gets super, super hot. And so inside all that epoxy just melts.
Yeah, it's like chocolate inside a box in the car.
Exactly. So no matter how hard I get the epoxy, because if you mess up a handle or it cracks or it breaks or something when you're making it, and you don't realize until after it's cured, you're like, oh crap, what do? I don't want to grind it off all the way. Just throw it in boiling water, and boiling water will melt that back down, and it will pull it off.
See, little stuff like that. See, there's extras here.
I didn't learn that for a long time until some old head that had been doing it for 15, 30 years.
I hate that about all of this stuff is that there's so much knowledge is lost over the years because of the fact that, once you know it, you may not realize that by you knowing it, not everybody else does. And in the daily life, we forget that. There's not a lot of common sense. Literally, I said that last night. But common sense is because of it has been commonly shared. And things that you know may not be something that someone else knows. So sharing that knowledge over the years or through people, even just learning. And that's why I keep saying you need to learn something new every day. Because if you may not have the chance to learn it in your lifetime. And if what you know at some random ass time in your life, you might be able to say, oh, well, I know this thing. Hey, this might help you. And you might be the one person that saves the rest of his, say if he's brick walled, and you may be the one person that says, hey, this is how you do this. And then you found out about the whole heat changing thing, and the boiling of the water. You probably would have been like, oh crap, I'm screwed. I can't do this anymore. You get brick walled by a lot of stuff. And then by finding that stupid little information that we all have this squirrel knowledge of, so.
And when I sold my house last year, and I stayed in an apartment while I was looking for a new house, and in the meantime I didn't have anywhere to put my shop, so I was like, I don't know what to do. So I had a friend out in Harmony, about 25 minutes away from where I was staying, that he does axes for a living. Mm-hmm. And so we met because he needed to borrow my forge one day for something, so he came over. Or he posted online about it, and we were in some mutual groups. He was like, hey, you're pretty close. Come on over, and you can use all my stuff, whatever you want. And so he had been doing it for a couple of years at that point and knew a lot of people. And so he was like, I really appreciate you letting me do this. You have full access to my network. If you ever need anything, let me know. I probably know someone that can help you.
Oh, wow.
And so I asked him if I could, I was like, hey, listen, I've got some tools that you don't have. You have some that I don't have. What do you think about us combining our shop while I'm in the middle of this transition, and we can both use all the stuff at the same time and really amp up both of our productions? And what that ended up looking like was him and I spending a lot of time together, teaching each other each of our tips and tricks from different sides of the same industry. So the stuff that he would do to make axes better, he would give me a suggestion. Hey, why don't you try this technique? I know it's not traditional for what you do, but give it a try. And vice versa. We would both teach each other these little things back and forth. And we've both been doing it for roughly the same amount of time. He was maybe a year or two longer than me, but we both, working together on a regular basis, were able to teach each other all of our other tips and tricks that we had figured out over time, instead of just watching people on YouTube or studying forums or stuff like that. And it helped both of us grow. And we still, now that I have my own place, we still go back and forth and use each other's shop. Yeah. Because our equipment is just different enough that I'll be like, I need this done, but my grinder is not quite set up exactly right. Yeah. I want this effect, so I can go over to his house and use his equipment and do the same kind of thing. And we can just share each other's supplies and knowledge. And then another guy in Moxville, I think he's in Moxville, that I had met that does leather.
Mhm.
And he does it for a living full time. I don't know, he doesn't do it full time, but he does it as a side business. But he'll do like 150 wallets in a week.
Oh,
That level of production.
side business.
Exactly. He does a lot of really cool stuff. And so when I met him,
I like side businesses.
I did too. When I finally got to meet him in person, I met him back in November last month. We went camping together. He first thing he said to me was, "Good to finally meet you. That last sheet that you made was fucking beautiful." And I was like, "Really?" Like coming from you, that means so much.
Aww.
And so it was really cool. But being able to hang out with him, he could look at my product and say, "By the way, I see the way you did this.
Mhm.
You can make it nicer. You can make it better. You can have a better process by doing this." And being able to hang out with people that are in the industry and they want to teach each other. They want to share knowledge with each other. We're doing the same thing. We're making the same products. We're essentially competitors, but we're helping each other grow. And I was like, I love that. Thank you so much. And so being able to have that camaraderie with people in the same industry is awesome.
It's hard to come by too because it is very cutthroat. Like business in general is very, very cutthroat. And for you guys to still like remain cool and like continue to be able to help each other's businesses grow, because you are not really a competitor if you think about it, because you're both in this leather industry, but you're making different products than he is. So like it's kind of yes, but it's mostly like you guys are just helping each other out really. So, and that's cool. I like that. Yeah, if you want to tell me about all those people's information, that'd be great too. If they want to come on this show or whatever, that's cool too.
The guy that has the act shop, he's been traveling and doing museum talks because he does a lot of Native American recreation or restoration. He forages and finds arrowheads and remnants of old tools from Native Americans because he's Native American. So it's really important to him to maintain and preserve that history.
Yeah.
So he finds a lot of that. He looks for it. He knows the places to go find it, and he can track it down and identify stones and see how you can find the strike marks on a stone because you can tell the way that it was made into an arrowhead or made into a spearhead or used as a tool by looking at the way that they were struck and being able to see those little details.
Yeah, because they used other rocks and stuff back in the day to do what is an arrowhead made out of? Is it made out of stone?
Yeah, they're usually made out of stone. But so he's been doing a lot of that work and traveling around and doing museum talks and recreating a lot of those old tools and weapons in modern style with modern materials, but still true to the original designs from back
you know me, I do variety stuff all the time. So like if anybody ever wants to be on here, I'd be more than happy to. I love promoting people. Mm-hmm. I love like coming out and seeing what you guys do and like just getting a feel and then like learning stuff too. Like I would have never known like half of the stuff that you just told me. Like yeah, I mean you learn it along the way. And like that's the great part about, like I said earlier, about you putting the heart back into it. That's the whole reason why I had joined corporate back when I was working in the automotive industry. It's because that was legitimately how I stated it. I wanted to put the heart back in corporate. I wanted to be that person where it's like, you know, this is what I do, this is what I love, and I want you to feel it. And I know that my viewers feel the love that you put into the stuff that you do and the creativity, it all comes from you. So, you know, and that makes it more quality over quantity type thing. So I appreciate you having me come out here today and talking about it.
Of course, I'm happy to do it.
And
do they have any questions?
I don't know. Let me check Facebook. I feel bad if you're on my Facebook. I wasn't even paying attention. Let's see. I had to move my phone. No, I just. Sorry, guys. You know how my internet is. There we go. Okay. There it is. So there's your. Check out FrontierSouthKnives on IG and also on Facebook. If you want to find out more or just look at some more of his work, I don't know. I really like it, and I know that you guys probably. I know a lot of you guys like when I brought my knives out. So these are handmade, just to give you a close up of like the behind the scenes stuff and the different types of work that he does and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed the show. And I know he's got to get ready to go to work. But thank you. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask. And then if you want to purchase something, you can ask me, or you can go directly through his IG and let him know what you're interested in. We're based out of Statesville, North Carolina. States Vegas, baby. But yeah, if you want to meet him in person, go down to Fourth Creek Brewery. He's a bartender down there. And you guys have seen me go live there a couple of times. He was actually the person that let me go live. So, but yeah.
I usually keep a case of stuff that I've made behind the bar when I'm there.
Oh, really?
So I can
That's cool.
Showcase anything.
Note to self, don't break in.
That's right. We're already ready.
Yeah. With old-fashioned swords and knives.
That's right.
But, all right, guys. Y'all have a wonderful 24 hours. And until I see you again, I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you again to Rick, FrontierSouthKnives. And y'all have a wonderful afternoon. Till I see you again.